There is a highly destructive, deeply silent survival cycle operating beneath the surface of everyday life that forces the human mind to push itself past the brink of absolute structural exhaustion, entirely ignoring its own internal alarms until the physical body has no choice but to engineer an artificial crisis or physical illness simply to force an immediate escape. You walk through your ordinary day, you manage your computer workspace with relentless dedication, and you carry the continuous heavy weight of your professional and family obligations without a single complaint. To the outside world, you are the ultimate anchor, completely unbreakable, highly efficient, and always available to carry the weight of others. But beneath that performative resilience, your nervous system is silently collapsing. In cognitive behavioral psychology, this hidden survival loop is defined as somatic escape caching. It is the tragic habit of a mind that has been conditioned to believe that rest is an act of deep selfishness or failure, forcing your subconscious to literally shut down your physical health simply to grant your conscious ego an acceptable, unblamed permission to stop. This profound physical collapse is driven by a psychological mechanism known as hyperfunctional martyrdom, operating through a structure called the permission deficit matrix. When an individual matures inside an early childhood environment, where their absolute worth was tied strictly to their external output, productivity, or utility to their caregivers, their predictive processing engine wires a rigid self-neglect loop. Their subconscious associates pausing, resting, or declaring a personal limit with the immediate, terrifying threat of guilt, unworthiness, or absolute abandonment by the herd. To the conscious ego, you genuinely believe you are simply being practical, disciplined, and responsible as you manage your daily timeline. But beneath your conscious awareness, your brain treats unearned relaxation as an existential hazard. Because your mind cannot tolerate the intense internal anxiety of simply saying no, your predictive processing engine develops a highly complex backdoor. It forces your body to manifest genuine, agonizing physical fatigue, chronic pain, or sudden illness simply to construct a socially valid shield that protects you from the shame of resting. To understand why this somatic escape loop carries such an ironclad, unyielding grip of your daily awareness, we must look at the neurobiology of the psychoneuroimmunological feedback axis. When modern neuroscientists place individuals who chronically suppress their own physical fatigue inside clinical settings and track their stress markers, they witness a devastating physiological shortcut. Under prolonged cognitive overdrive, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex continuously sends high-priority commands to suppress your raw bodily awareness, keeping you hyper-focused on your computer workspace deadlines. But this continuous override floods your central nervous system with non-stop adrenaline and cortisol. Eventually, your autonomic nervous system reaches a point of structural data starvation, completely crashing your immune system's regulatory receptors and lighting up your inflammatory tracking networks in an intense system-wide alarm. In a very literal sense, your brain pulls the plug on your biology. It converts your hidden mental exhaustion into real-world physical pain, forcing your logical intellect completely offline, compelling you to choose submission to the bed simply to quiet the somatic agony of a crashed system. When this intense neurochemical crash takes hold during a period of total overload, the subconscious mind deploys an automated defensive maneuver known as somatic rationalization. This is a highly sophisticated psychological shield where the brain actively uses its intellect to treat its sudden physical illness as a completely accidental external tragedy, entirely hiding the reality that your own mind engineered the crash to save your life. The human ego cannot tolerate the internal instability of recognizing that it has voluntarily starved its own consciousness of rest out of pure compliance fear. To protect your pride from the terrifying realization that your lifestyle is fundamentally toxic, your mind performs a catastrophic distortion of perception. It begins telling a comforting story. I didn't want to step away from my responsibilities. I'm simply a victim of a sudden virus, a physical injury, or a temporary medical mystery. Notice how the mind weaponizes real bodily illness as an emotional shield to keep you completely blind to your own self-neglect, leaving your defenses totally raised while you only allow yourself to breathe when you are medically broken. The primary weapon the exhausted ego uses to reinforce this mental prison is a process called obligation overgating. When your predictive processing engine operates under a permission deficit matrix, it does not allow you to evaluate your daily tasks with balanced logical data points. Instead, it actively forces your intellect to treat every single request, every timeline, and every external demand inside your workspace as an absolute life-threatening emergency that only you can solve. The mind is an expert at inventing highly logical, comforting justifications for its own narrow perspective. Consider a scenario where a fresh project drops onto your desk or a relative requests your personal energy. The clash between your private need for boundaries and the terrifying fear of letting someone down creates severe cognitive dissonance inside your brain. To resolve this internal agony without dropping your guard, your mind convinces you that pausing is an act of total irresponsibility, choosing the misery of a chronic biological overload today over the vulnerability of setting an independent limit tomorrow. Alongside obligation overgating, the masked mind utilizes a secondary, highly passive filter known as fatigue devaluation caching. Once a person has spent decades treating their own body as a literal pack mule designed solely to generate external validation, their internal database transforms their everyday perception into a shield of cold, detached judgment. When your central nervous system sends up early, critical data points of profound exhaustion or low-grade panic inside your computer workspace, your selective attention filter ensures that your brain actively highlights your pride, your record of reliability, and your fear of looking weak, while completely deleting or ignoring your biology's warning signals. You push through the pain with caffeine, distractions, or sheer performance, entirely unaware that your brain is misinterpreting a state of chronic cellular inflammation as a sign of high work ethic. This filter alters your perception because it makes your self-destruction look like an act of superior resilience and absolute professionalism, completely shielding your ego from the terrifying reality that you are running on empty. These abstract biological filters manifest daily in devastating real-world loops, the most common of which is the trap of the forced breakdown citadel. This is the precise reason why the most responsible, reliable individuals inside a family network or corporate structure can work at their desks for years without a single sick day, only to suddenly suffer a massive, catastrophic medical emergency or physical collapse the exact second they finally take a holiday or enter a period of quiet transition. When your brain is held on a tight baseline of survival activation, your cortisol levels artificially shield you from feeling the true depth of your decay. But the second you step away from your computer workspace and attempt to relax, your protective defenses drop. Your brain looks at its internal database, realizes the immediate danger is gone, and instantly dumps a month's worth of accumulated neural inflammation onto your body at once. You spend your entire break locked in a room suffering from intense illness, entirely blind to the reality that your own hyper-independent masking trained your nervous system to treat peace as a biological emergency. We see this exact same self-sabotage playing out through the pattern of the resentful caretaking loop. When an ordinary, empathetic human being spends years absorbing the emotional crises and technical timelines of everyone around them while denying their own feelings and practicing total invisibility, their central nervous system eventually enters a state of absolute structural collapse. Because you cannot maintain the flawless mirror persona any longer, a deep, bitter wave of toxic resentment begins to simmer beneath your conscious awareness. You look at the people around you, people who are happily taking your energy, your time, and your support without ever asking how you are doing, and your mind performs an immediate, dark rewrite of history. You brand them as uniquely selfish and predatory, entirely blind to the reality that your own hyper-independent masking is the exact mechanism that trained them to treat you as a resource rather than a human being. The loop closes perfectly, strengthening the neural pathways of exhaustion until you are actively helping the environment destroy your own peace. When this collective hyper-independent masking and emotional containment scales up across an entire culture, it produces the highly destructive phenomenon of systemic burnout and institutional alienation. The society slides into a profound crisis of decay when its primary citizens stop interacting through genuine vulnerability, shared truth, and mutual protection, choosing instead to navigate existence solely through the filtered lens of performative competence, curated digital lives, and low-risk compliance. Independent emotional honesty and personal limit setting are treated as an embarrassing social liability. Mass masking turns a population into a synchronized herd of isolated, unthinking echoes who will gladly trade true human intimacy and deep psychological safety simply to protect the collective ego from the risk of being perceived as weak. The civilization does not lose its sanity because it is overrun by external monsters. It slides into a cold, clinical madness because ordinary citizens choose compliance with a comfortable, shared illusion of strength over the raw discomfort of reaching out across the void. The true danger of the permission deficit matrix is that it constructs a perfectly closed, self-fulfilling cognitive loop that entirely blinds you to your own loss of personal sovereignty. The cycle begins the moment your body experiences an automated wave of internal distress or emotional exhaustion inside your workspace. This high-stress environment creates immediate subconscious pressure to protect your strong persona, forcing your brain to reduce activity in its logical and self-reflective networks. Because your internal boundaries are lowered by the fear of looking weak, you choose compliance with the mask, adopting a hypervigilant obligation tracking loop and burying your pain deeper beneath the performative smile. To clear the immediate wave of internal guilt, your mind instantly deploys somatic rationalization, rewriting history to convince your conscious ego that your physical illness was an accidental tragedy rather than a self-imposed prison. This failure to stand for your own human limitations is then used by your predictive engine as a new baseline, permanently locking you in a loop of trauma dependency. Dismantling this matrix of biological exhaustion requires a rare, aggressive practice known as the sovereign rest boundary. You cannot think your way out of a somatic escape loop. Your brain's high-level comfort filters will simply hijack your thoughts to validate your self-neglect, demanding hard physical acts of voluntary boundary setting and unearned pause to break the circuit. This reprogramming begins by learning an extraordinary, liberating truth uncovered in clinical psychology. Your body does not require a medical diagnosis, an accidental injury, or a total system collapse to earn the right to turn off. The next time a wave of heavy exhaustion or low-grade panic hits your system inside your computer workspace, do not look to your performance metrics for validation. Recognize that your rising heart rate is your amygdala firing an early rejection alarm under the fear of standing out. Force your physical body to execute an absolute stop. Shut down your monitor, drop the external obligations, and choose to rest in calm awareness, providing an immediate data point that proves your survival is secure without your performance. Tearing away your armor of strength and choosing to stand in your raw, unfiltered human truth is an act of supreme heroism, because it forces you to face the raw neural pain of standing completely exposed outside your fortress of certainty. Your brain will fight this process at every single turn, desperately screaming at you to put the mask back on, hide your tears, and accept the comfortable shared illusions of your independence simply to keep your ego safe in the pack. But now that you know the anatomy of the trap, now that you understand how your subconscious mind uses compulsory self-containment, the strong one schema, and somatic rationalization to turn you into an unthinking echo, the performance has lost its lock over your consciousness. You can choose to step out of the illusion and view your reality with absolute unyielding clarity. This navigation of your subconscious architecture is a lifelong education, and your brain utilizes dozens of other invisible neural mechanisms every single day to dictate your choices and trap you on autopilot without your consent. If you are ready to shatter the rest of these hidden mental loops, discover how your mind fakes reality, and unlock the true mechanisms of your subconscious, click on the playlist appearing on your screen right now. We have built an entire archive of long-form psychological deep dives designed explicitly to help you look past the self-delusions of your ego. Click through, explore the library, and take absolute control of your psychology.